I really love Star Wars. Most of the time. I have a lot of fond memories with Star Wars as a kid and in my teenage years. Lightsaber duels, dogfights and battleships in space, memorable characters and epic music. This was one of my favorite franchises for a long time until, well, this thing came out, but I've been getting back into the franchise lately. Mandalorian is phenomenal, and I hate that I missed out on it, and I've heard Andor, Ahsoka, and Visions are really good, so I'll have to check them out when I can. But since I was born in 2001, I was introduced to Star Wars around the time when the Clone Wars era was at an all-time high. Watching the prequels and original trilogy with my family, waking up early every Saturday to watch the newest episode of the Clone Wars with my older sister, and of course, playing the many video games. There are no shortage of Star Wars games. In fact, Star Wars games go all the way back to the Atari 2600. And most of the time, the games are really damn good. Battlefront 2, Rogue Squadron, the LEGO games, Jedi Knight, and Republic Commando, to name some, are games that are fondly remembered, and Knights of the Old Republic in particular is one of the most celebrated and critically acclaimed games of all time. Sure, not all of them are good, but for the most part, the video games for Star Wars are usually good, and we still get some good Star Wars games. And we're reviewing the console version of Revenge of the Sith, the game based on the best Star Wars movie. No, this is not up for debate. This, along with Empire Strikes Back, are the best Star Anyway, this is the first licensed game I'm reviewing that I'd actually consider above average, and it's a game I actually have a few fond memories of. Before we begin though, I noticed that 96.6% of my viewers aren't subscribed, so if you like this video, please subscribe and like the video. This video nearly drove me insane. It's probably my least favorite video that I've edited so far, so I genuinely appreciate the support. Okay, enough shilling, let's talk about the game already. The game has a single player and a multiplayer mode. The single player mode that has the main campaign of the game and bonus missions. The main campaign is a retelling of the movie, but it's just events that take place from Obi-Wan and Anakin's perspective, so it doesn't cover all of the movie. Which is fine since Obi-Wan and Anakin were the main characters of Revenge of the Sith. The graphics are probably what you'd expect from a licensed game from the PS2 era, but they aren't terrible. The models for Obi-Wan and Anakin in particular do capture the look of the actors as best as they can. Sure, they don't really look like the actors one-to-one, especially compared to more recent games that have Obi-Wan and Anakin, but this was the 2000s and video games weren't as graphically advanced as they are now. Some of the cutscenes are also from the film itself, done in that glorious PS2 low quality. I definitely wouldn't watch movies that way now, but seeing the movie cutscenes in this quality really took me back to those late nights when I would watch Cars, Beyblade, Sonic, and whatever other DVD I felt like watching on my PS2 over and over again. Good times. The combat is easy to understand. You get quick attacks that do moderate damage to enemies and heavy attacks that do more damage. You also get airborne attacks when you need to use them, but they definitely aren't as good as, say, God of War or Devil May Cry 3's airborne combat. But with the ground combat, you can actually string together light and heavy attacks together. There's a combo chart in the pause menu, and while these combos can be pretty easy to pull off, I'm gonna be honest, I usually just end up pressing the same button over and over until an enemy dies. It's really not as deep as other action games on the PS2, but it doesn't need to be. It just needed to be competent enough to make slashing with a lightsaber fun. And since you're playing as a Jedi, you get access to Force abilities, which are pretty useful. You can force grab enemies with the R1 button and throw them across the level, use the R2 button to stun an enemy, shock them with Force Lightning, or to use a Jedi mind trick to have enemies fight for you. There's also a Force Run, and while I think it's only really necessary for like 1 or 2 sections of the game, I think there's definitely some benefit to still using it. The most useful Force ability is Force Heal, which you use by pressing down on both analog sticks, and yeah, it heals you. And in the later levels, Anakin using Force Lightning just looks so cool! It may not really make sense considering Force Lightning needs an actual fleshy hand, but hey, it's still cool. And Obi-Wan gets Jedi Mind Trick in the later levels, which, honestly, I never really used it much. But that being said, there's a couple issues I have with the campaign. There's a couple turret sections, and yeah, they're about as tedious as you would imagine. You fire at enemies and ships, of course, which whatever, but the gun overheats and you have to wait for the heat to go down. They don't last long, but they do get old after like 1 minute. And while we're talking about the game's problems, I have to bring up the experience system. Now, you think with getting experience, you can just replay the levels and get more experience to level up the abilities, right? Nah. Each level, I kid you not, has a set amount of experience, and when you replay the levels, you don't get as much experience because you've already earned that experience. What kind of sociopath would design an experience system like this? Yo, so I'm in the editing process as I'm recording this, but I forgot to add that with the experience system, I'm pretty sure it's determined that the most points you get on good, impressive, and masterful, the more experience you get, but in my experience, it's really kind of frustrating to even attempt to get that high with the scores, which makes the experience system even worse. Like seriously, who okayed this? The game also has some of the most frustrating enemies I've ever fought against. Sometimes you'll get these brutish enemies, and I didn't bring this up before, but you can't break the guard in this game, so I normally have to pick them up with the force or physically grab them and then deal with them in any way I can. It's even worse with the Jedi Temple, where sometimes these brutish enemies will just block your force abilities and you can't even break their guard. I get that a game needs to have a challenge for the player, but I feel like I've only killed these enemies when the game feels like I've had enough. Standard enemies like the battle droids, super battle droids, and clone troopers, they aren't much of a challenge. Slash your lightsaber a few times, maybe use a force ability if you feel like it, and that's really it. There's also these clone assassins that move really fast and can be annoying, but I'd still rather fight them over the brutish enemies, and their design is just really cool. There's also these enemies in this level that have these shock batons that stun you, making this level miserable to play already, and they are also there in the boss fight of this level where you fight the ship, and like, this is actually the worst level in the main campaign. Like, I literally just played it a few minutes ago as I'm recording this. Droideka I'll mainly mention since it's one of my favorite droids, but they're mostly just a beefed up version of the battle droids. That's all I have to say about them, really. There's also the Jedi enemies and Jedi enemies that fight with their lightsabers backhanded like Starkiller and Ahsoka, and they might be the best enemies in the game since they offer a good challenge but don't feel so annoying that you feel like the game is just waiting for the moment when it thinks you've had enough. So overall, the enemies aren't special, but there's some good ones. What the hell is Robin doing here? What about the missions themselves though? Well, they are based on events from Anakin and Obi-Wan's perspective from the film, and I think the game does a pretty good job adapting these events. The first 6 levels are Anakin and Obi-Wan rescuing Palpatine, a few levels with Obi-Wan and Grievous's fight, and you also get to experience Order 66 from both characters' point of view. But it's sadly not completely accurate because in one of the Order 66 levels, it doesn't include a section where Anakin slaughters the young. But of course, the final level is the climactic and epic duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin. There's even an extra level after the main campaign where you get to play as Anakin, and it shows an alternate ending to the duel.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
Don't try it!
Excellent work, my apprentice. There are none left to oppose us. The galaxy is ours now. Your new weapon, Lord Vader.
No, the galaxy belongs to me.
You know, I wonder how an entry that follows up on this ending would play out. And let me just say, this game's lightsaber duels are probably the best part of the game. It's not the smoothest combat, but lightsaber duels in this game are fun. catching the boss off guard when they're attacking and punishing them with a flurry of saber strikes before they get the chance to guard, and mashing the buttons during a saber clash and getting the upper hand on your opponent is pretty satisfying. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that one of the boss fights is Mace Windu, which is definitely a plus for Mace Windu haters. It really does feel like the game was designed with the lightsaber duels in mind, especially in regards to the multiplayer mode. But before we talk about the multiplayer mode, let's get the bonus missions out of the way. These missions are side content you unlock through the main campaign, so instead of dissecting them and going into a lot of detail, let's just rank them and summarize them. Disappointment in the game of life! Grievous's Bodyguards is the absolute worst level in the entire game, mainly because of the fact that the Magna Guard sucks to play as. It can't chain together light and heavy attacks for combos like the other characters, and when you press one of the buttons to attack a clone, there's no way to cancel the attack or press another button to get away from being destroyed. And also the fact that bacta tanks are pretty limited around this level, and there's no other way to heal yourself, so the times I attempted this level, I couldn't get past the crab droid. This level belongs so deep in the Death Star's dumpster water that even the Dianoga wouldn't bother with it. Which is a shame, because the Magna Guard is actually one of my favorite droids. If you're not with me, then you're my enemy! Mustafar Lava Challenge isn't as bad, mainly because you get to play as Anakin, but it still has its own issues. And the main issue is that it's a platforming level in a non-platformer game. I love a good 3D platformer, but not platforming levels in non-platforming games unless their jumping is tight enough for them. With the way it's programmed, the jumping in this game shouldn't be used for a platformer. What adds to the frustration is the bigger enemies that are in the level, and if you're not careful, they can knock you off the platform, causing you to have to restart the level. So yeah, it's not as bad as Grievous's Bodyguards, but it's still a pretty bad level. Needed! Citation is! Size Matters Not is pretty meh. It definitely sticks out since this is the only level where you get to play as Yoda, but it's mostly just a few waves of enemies. Yoda feels awkward to play as, and the mission feels like it overstays its welcome when you fight the assassin clone troopers. They're already annoying to fight, but as Yoda, it's worse, and this is only above the last level because this actually feels like a level that's designed for the game. Honestly, I don't have anything else to say. There are enemies you fight in the main campaign, but you're playing as Yoda with an awkward moveset. I am not doing a general Grievous impression. I already almost killed my voice doing a Yoda impression. Grievous on the Run is actually pretty fun. It's another mission where you're fighting waves of enemies, but I rank it higher than the others because Grievous is actually fun to play as. Plus, when you get to the end of the wave and fight Obi-Wan at the end, the level actually gives you a bacta tank, unlike Grievous's Bodyguards where it just gives you those bacta tanks and expects you to survive playing as a character with a terrible and awkward movesets. Overall, I like this one, but I don't really have anything else to say.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Episode 4 Death Star is the best bonus mission because... come on, it's the duel between Ben Kenobi and Darth Vader from the first Star Wars movie. The lightsaber duels were easily the highlight of this game, and this is a level with one of the most iconic lightsaber duels in Star Wars. No extra enemies or anything, it's just Darth Vader and Ben Kenobi throwing down. Playing as Darth Vader is already cool, but the fact he can use Force Lightning in this game makes it even better. Like, when I was a kid, Darth Vader using Force Lightning was the coolest thing ever to me. Even if it doesn't make sense, since he would get electrocuted instantly if he tried to do it outside of this game. But yeah, this is easily the best bonus mission because it's one of the most well-known lightsaber duels made into a playable level, and it doesn't try to do anything else. Speaking of the lightsaber duels, the multiplayer mode is exactly how it sounds, but you can actually play against an AI in this mode if you don't have a friend with you. Its roster has characters that appear throughout the game and even has one original character for this game, Sarah Keto, and even includes Sin Drallig as a playable character in boss fights. There's even alternate outfits if player 2 picks the same character. I absolutely love this alternate costume for Anakin. It's so edgy and badass, and also love it as a hypothetical of what Darth Vader would look like if he didn't burn on Mustafar. Honestly, I think this might be the closest we get to a Star Wars fighting game. No, Soul Calibur 4 does not count. No, this game sucks. It doesn't count. There's also cooperative missions in the multiplayer mode, but I'm gonna be real, they're just fighting waves of enemies and they're really not worth talking about. It could be a nice co-op game, but if you're looking for Star Wars co-op, just play LEGO Star Wars. So, what do I think about this game overall? It is a pretty good game, but compared to other Star Wars games, I've seen better. That being said, it's definitely the best game I've reviewed so far. After what I put myself through with the last few games I've reviewed so far, it's refreshing to play a game that doesn't want to make me tear my hair off. But can I actually recommend this game? Well, if you have time to kill, you're a fan of Revenge of the Sith and want to experience the story in another way, have to play every single Star Wars game, or if you and a friend want to check out the multiplayer mode, then yeah. If you don't fall into any of those categories, then nah, it's definitely not a must-play game, even for the most diehard Star Wars fans. It's a pretty competent game overall, but if you're not a fan of Revenge of the Sith, I don't see how you would get anything out of this game. Like, it's fine, definitely a 7 out of 10, but nothing special. But as someone whose favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith, I'm glad I played this game again, and I had fun with it, but I don't feel like going back to this game as much as I do with Battlefront 2 or a few other Star Wars games. So if it looks interesting to you and you need to kill some time, this might be a game you'll want to check out. Don't buy Postal 3.
Master Skywalker, are you Skibbity Sigma?